No, you can sit here because you're going to go immediately. So, you two can stå there. Sit there. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen. Ivana, can you just tell, I can't see around the corner, just tell people that we'll start now. There are still some seats here. Maybe, I'm sorry that we're in a very small but intimate place. I hope you appreciate it. Our intention was a beautiful sun and a view over Stockholm for all of our foreign guests, but unfortunately the fog has come in, and we're hoping by this afternoon to be able to show you what's up.
Snow.
It's snow. Looks like fog to me.
Please just come inside. I'll sit here on this side too.
Hey, Kalle.
It might be some this afternoon.
There might be some this afternoon. Okay. There's a couple seats here, Jonas, if you're looking for one.
And there's still some over there on the other side.
Sorry to have not made it so easy to travel. Patrick, you can join us up here. Yeah, it's good. Okay. Good dog. Buongiorno. Good evening. Good morning. As I said, we had expected that we would have beautiful weather here and that we would be able to look out over it. But in any case, I hope that by maybe after lunch, the snow will stop a bit. It's really great that all of you came anyway. Let me just quickly explain before I turn over the word to, above all, our two introducing people here today. The whole day will be in English, and the reason for that is because certainly more than half of the people sitting in this room are English speakers. This is a gathering of the Project Corners, which is a 4.5-year European project that Interpol has driven together with 10 other organizations in Europe, at the corners of Europe, as we call it, at the edges of Europe. And these producers together have co-commissioned and toured a number of projects throughout Europe of international artists working in local contexts. This means international artists dropping in and strengthening an existing situation locally by offering a participatory and unconventional meeting. This is at the verge of community arts, but please let me underline that it is not, Corners itself is not a community arts project. When we arrive, our artists, after much preparation by our partners, anywhere between 25 and 40 artists arrive and work for 2 weeks. And we are sometimes even accused of being parachuters. I like the idea of being parachuters, actually, especially when we come behind enemy lines with our parachutes. So, but we are there, and it's quick, and it's a flash, an ignition. But the local context remains. And I'm reminded, and it's in the study that you can receive a link to eventually. Some of you have had a chance to look at the first version of it that we will present today. I'm reminded of my colleague Dragan Klajic, who said once long ago to us when we were talking about audience participation, that art is always international and audiences are always local. This means that no matter where you are in your local place when you are a participant or a spectator. So to make this connection between the international kick, the thing that wakes us up, the things that make Sweden not nearly as dangerous as Donald Trump would tell us, this possibility of rubbing shoulders with people and changing languages and exchanging experiences is something that is actually done always at the local level. So here we are in Stockholm, at the top of Stockholm. You would be able to see it, if not. And I opened my news today and I saw very interesting. There is a new record on the Stockholm stock market. We've risen by more than 5.5% now. So we can all be happy that the money is flowing. And now the question is, are the ideas flowing? How can we make that happen? So our concern with our project Corners, Audience Links Exchange, this is the third. My friend and colleague Iker organized the first one in Donostia at Donostia 2016. My friend and colleague Ola, there she is, Alexandra, from Gdansk organized the second one last year, and Intercult has the responsibility for the third. The experiences we are talking about yesterday in our internal meetings were about what happened when foreign UFOs dropped in and started working with people, and when they left again, and what could remain and how could we do it better. We have 3 more events during 2017 in Gdansk, in East Durham. Where's Matt? There you are, Matt and Mariangela, from ISIS Arts in England, who are part of the organization team. And finally in Taranto, is Julia here? Roberta, ciao. Roberta and Julia, there you are. From Taranto, from Teatro Pubblico Pugliese. I would like you also, Roberta and Julia, to meet also Magnus and Yamam and others, because Teatro Pubblico Pugliese is a kind of regional version of Riksteatern. They have many, many things in common. This is Corners. On the other side, we have another team of people that we are meeting, many of which are you here, and that is from that which we call Baltic Audience Links, a project supported by the Swedish Institute as part of the Baltic Sea development approach. And those people had also a meeting yesterday, and now we're all together here. I'm going to give the word now to my colleague, Yvonne Price, from Intercult, who will just quickly tell us about Audience Links, and then the word to Magnus. Yvonne.
Yes. Hello. I'm Yvonne Price, working with Chris at Intercult, and also with Raki and some other colleagues, Christopher Bloom, Stuart Smedding, and Agneta Hansson. So this is the personal. If you have any questions, just ask. I'm responsible for the Audience Links project together with my colleague from Lithuania, Ekaterina Lavrinets from Laiviki, and together with Foundation represented by Magdalena Zakrzewska-Duda sitting here. And this is a project, as we said, funded by Swedish Institute of the Sea Union. And we are working with a question how to involve different groups in their creative processes in local society. So also the participation which Chris just mentioned. We are mapping the Baltic Sea region, mainly Lithuania and Latvia and Poland also, to see and how the organizations are working with participation, how the organizations are working and with the local audiences, and we are creating a toolkit to show to other cultural organizations about the work in public spaces. And there are many organizations here today invited to this conference, participants from Latvia, Lithuania and Poland, and maybe I can just name who you are. Kaspasz from Latvia, from To Dobrze, is Kaspar here? Kaspar is over there. Anna and Venantius Hoffman from Foundation Arteria in Poland, over there. Ed Karol and Vita Gulenie from Lithuania, over there. Iza Rutkowska from Poland, yes, there is Iza. Evelina from Lithuania, over here. Diana Popova from Survival Kit in Latvia, yes, you are here. Indre from Lithuania, Vipa, here. Jonas Bucher from Urban Institute in Latvia, Jonas is over there. Judith, Street Music Day, Culture Night Vilnius, Lithuania. Sorry, Judita. And Eva Lange from Friliga, Latvia. So you see the international company is here. We are all together gathered We have also a representative of Arctic Art Forum, Katerina Sharova. I think that Katerina is here. She's supposed to be in one of the panels today. Maybe she's on the way. Working in Archangel, Russia. We are one of the representatives of the Intercult Network, Swedish-Russian network of curators and young professionals in art. And River Cities, last but not least. River Cities platform is a partnership between cultural organizations, political organizations, environmental organizations, and the board is here. We are working with waters, we are working with rivers, lakes, or the waterfront, the urban waterfront. And we are working with the question if we can bring and how we can bring creativity to the urban waterfront, and we believe that we can, for the benefit of the citizens. And we have the board here. Representatives are Martina Zverev, head of culture in the city of Ostende in Belgium. Again, Magdalena from Baltic Sea Cultural Center in Poland. Bernd Herger, where is Bernd? Over there from Wiener Bildung Academy in Vienna, representing one of the biggest culture festivals in Europe, Danube Island Festival. Then we have also Sarah Walsh from UK, from London, representing Thames Trust, the CEO of the Thames Trust, with her colleague, Marketing Communications Manager, Ranjit Ratbal, and Agnieszka Blazer, Impact Foundation, and also Małgorzata Długu from River Cities Secretariat. So the international company of our guests coming here, I guess, by habit. We will get to know more about this division. The parachuting was the surprise. I was thinking about this song in the morning, and the definition is very good. You will hear much more about this. But I thought, well, our guests, we're calling our guest coming. You know this song by Carole King. You just call on my name, and you know wherever I am, I come running to see you again. Welcome to.
We've worked together a number of years now, but I've never heard her sing. We have just decided that we're going to apply to be the producers of the Eurovision Festival. And,
so you understand the meaning of the exercise.
And we understand the meaning of audience development.
Yeah.
Come on.
I am sorry, we also have the Swedish network Access Europe, and Magnus and the Rikstheater is a member, so I will give the floor to Magnus, I guess.
Okay. I would just a quick introduction. Magnus Aspergren is the CEO at Riksteatern, and for those of you, because there are many who do not, very quickly, I would just say that Riksteatern is a national theater, has a national responsibility, and is representing how many associations?
230.
30, I say 28 all the time. Okay, 230 associations. They've grown. And Magnus will tell us a little bit about this. And Riksteatern is, of course, our co-arranger of this conference and a number of other initiatives that we have. But I leave the word now to Magnus.
Okay. Thank you so much, and welcome to this beautiful place, Södra Teatern, because Södra Teatern is also a part of Riksteatern. We own this building and has owned it for many years, and on my left hand here is one of the former CEOs of this building. He made a wonderful work how to create and develop this place, and maybe you will talk a little more about that later. We will in this afternoon have Måns Lagerlöf here, who is the artistic director for theatre. He will talk more into details how we work towards audience building and what goals that we have and what challenges do we have. But before that, you should know a little more about Riksteatern, because it's a wonderful organization and quite unique. And it all started 85 years ago nearly now. And the whole idea was in a quite poor country of Sweden during that time to spread very good performing arts around Sweden. Of course, during that time we had Dramaten and big companies in the big cities, Malmö, Gothenburg, and Stockholm. But you know, outside these cities, it was not as you can read in the guy who ran this project saying it was a very poor circumstances of performing arts. So the whole idea was to educate Sweden via performing art. That was one part. Of course, there were a lot of other activities, political, during that time. But the good idea was that just don't. One idea, of course, how to spread it, how to tour. So the first idea was to create these local associations around Sweden, public or audience associations, and there it all started. And today it is an people's movement, we can say, because all these associations, via the members, own the theatre. So we have a congress every 4th year, and after congress we have a lot of congress things to deal with, many what to say goals to work with, and of course it all is about performing arts. And of course today we are a big institution because we also have a letter of intent from the government, and with that letter of intent it's a lot of money because we produce a lot of theatre and dance, and we have a company, Cullberg Ballet is one part, we have sign language theatre, we do about 40 productions per year, and including the things that we do in Södra Teatern, we reach about 450,000 people around Sweden. And to do that, of course, you need to have collaborations with regional theatres or the big drama theatre in Stockholm, whatever. So in every step we have a kind of collaborations today, because we have today also very strong regional theatres. During that time, 85 years ago, it was not that situation at all. So it's a new landscape today. And of course, one of the main challenges that we have and the goals today is that the society in Sweden is totally different. Of course, we are more now a part of the whole situation of Europe, and now also the President of the United States thinks that he knows something about it, but he don't. But anyway, of course, we have a situation here as well, and we have a lot of new people in Sweden in different languages. So what happened 10 years ago also was that we decided to how to reach out, and how can we reach out to all these groups that came from Bosnia or Turkey or different other cities or countries. That's one word that I missed. Anyhow, so that was quite successful. And today, of course, we have different languages besides this that I mentioned. So how do we do that, and how do we reach out, and how do we connect and make people participate in what we do? And of course, how do we structure this work? And so what we decided also 1 year ago is that we need a strategy how to deal with this. How can we find out where are the people and what do they want and how are they formed, etc., etc. So today we're working, and if you want to know more about our strategy, Yaman Al-Subaidi is standing in the corner. He will be here the whole day. He can tell you a little more about how this ground is now, how we work with this, and how we can reach out more in a strategic way. Because we need to know more, we need to have data, we need to see where and how people are connecting to each other, etc., etc. I mean, you need to do this very strategically, because you can't just do what you have done in the same way during the past. I mean, it's a new situation, but it's the same in many ways, the same situation today. I mean, what is Riksteatern? How can we educate, and how can we spread performing arts around Sweden? Because we have a situation also that everything is going into the cities, and we have a wonderful country up north that are in one way dying. How can we be a part that people stay or be a part of this, and how do you do that in a very clever way? It's not just go there with one performances and then leave, because these associations that I talked about, I mean, they don't have regular every evening like a theatre. Maybe they do 10 times per year, but of course they are involved in many other projects or things. And how can they be more a part of the society, and how can we help to to work together and also make them work together with other associations. That I know that Måns will talk a little about how we today working with themes and try to get people and via the association get involved quite early. So we decided 1 year ago that the whole repertoire is we're now planning for 18-19, and that's because so we can start the audience work so much earlier. And of course that means a lot for our organization, how to do that and how to know what is the best to do in a couple of years. As I said, we do 40 productions per year, so it's quite a lot to have on the table. So next time maybe we can meet in, because this is one of our building. We have also a building where we do all the productions with six theaters south of Stockholm in Botkyrka. That's our main office, and all the administration, all the technicians, and all the rehearsals and all the workshops. And it's a wonderful big theater building that we use. And nowadays we also work much more towards the people that also lives in Botkyrka, because it's a place where there's a lot of people from other countries, and of course we need how can we deal with that and how can we work together. So that we can talk about more. I have a little problem. I'm a little double booked, so I will need to run now, but I will come back, and you will meet some other people also from Riksteatern during the day. Måns will come later, and Yaman is here, but I will be here after lunch.
Great.
Is that okay?
Thanks, Måns.
Thank you. See you later.
We'll turn the word over immediately to that which has now just been defined as the cities that are sucking all of the energy and people from the country. Patrick, all of these people that are coming from all over the place, whether it's the world or Norrland or whatever, and they land in Stockholm, what are we doing about that? Patrick Liljegren is the head of the Department of Cultural Strategy in the city of Stockholm, and earlier was the director of this theater, Södra Teatern, and earlier worked even at Riksteatern with the project. So this is a guy who has been thinking about this for a long time, but now comes at it from another perspective.
That's right.
Tell us. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you for this introduction.
Oh, sorry, just one more thing before I let you. We are being live sent here now.
Okay.
So
I better shape
just so
up.
you should know. Yeah, so shape up. Exactly.
Okay. I used to work here. 2004, I started here, talking about audience development. One of the first things I noticed when I came here was that people arrive for the show that starts 7 o'clock. They arrive 10 minutes before, and during 10 minutes they should pick up the ticket, hang their coat, go to the toilet, have a drink, a cigarette, find their seats, turn off the phone, which is not possible to do in 10 minutes. But we think we are possible. We think that we can do that in 10 minutes. And all this was about expectations. So when they come here, they believe that they can do everything in 10 minutes. The high expectations of logistics during these magic 10 minutes before the show starts. And that's something about the audience of yesterday and the audience of today. Very high expectations of what a theater like this or a free art association has to deliver to a very service demanding audience.
Yeah. I forget the word too, but
my job is I'm responsible. One of the things that I'm responsible for is funding. We fund the free arts and the civil society and community centers with about 20 million euros every year. I wish it was every day. Soon there, I will come there. I have to brag about Sweden these days, right? So we work a lot with applications from different art forms, and we also have 45 libraries, 15,000 students in the country school. We have City Museum. We have a few festivals that are quite popular. So we do a lot of things within the cultural administration outside the funding systems. As you know, we are a fast-growing city. 35,000 people choose to go to Stockholm every year. They used to say it's 2 buses every day that jumps up here. A few people also leave, but it means that we are a fast-growing city, one of the fastest growing in Europe, which means that we have a lot of new citizens every year in this region, in this city. We also need to understand that we have a lot of inhabitants and citizens that are very high demanding on when it comes to culture. 13 million hotel nights, so we have a lot of visitors coming here as well, which means that a lot of people not knowing so much about Stockholm coming here. And they have to navigate. That is the potential audience of all three arts groups, all the institutions, Söderteatern and every art player in this field. Which means we have to be very good at audience development. At the same time, we have huge challenges when it comes to segregation. It means that not everybody feels included in the city. They feel outside. They don't get reached by all the great marketing all these institutions and groups does. We have to be a lot better on this. So when we work with all these applications, we come to that a little bit later. But the social aspects when it comes to audience development has a big and strong force at the moment. It doesn't mean that we have to forget about the development of the arts, but the audience has a much stronger focus at the moment the last years. I think that we grow further on. So we more and more are moving into the social field. This is not something new, happens all over Europe, but I think every art player in the field has noticed this and has developed their system for this. So what have we done within the city of Stockholm? We have developed all the funding systems, which we have a 5, 6, 7 different funding systems, so that the audience criteria is today much stronger than it was yesterday. It means that we focus more on who do you want to meet and have in your facility, in your venue, and how will you reach that person. It needs a very high level of competence and a clear idea about this. And so that is a stronger criteria. We have that's one of the things we've done. The second thing is that we've added on physical facilities, especially when it comes to libraries and when it comes to community centers. And we have worked together with other organizations. Parker is one of them. I don't know what you call that in English, but it's a lot of houses around Sweden that are run by the citizens. We are developing many of the old institutions in the city museum, libraries, etc. The digital services has developed quite a few the last years. Among the many things, we have done a little application for children when they want to read books, called Biblix. Basically, it's a very adapted application for children to borrow books by themselves. I think it's ranged from the age of 7 to 13 or something like that. And I think the digital strategies that we have today and developed is a big part of the concept that we want and need to reach everyone. You cannot reach everyone by just sitting in one house or 2 houses or 45 libraries. The digital strategy is clearly crucial for the whole concept of reaching everybody. But that is expensive. And it's expensive not only 1 year, 2 years, it's expensive all the time because you have to renew it. We have done a lot of few things in the social field. We have the orchestra called El Sistema. You probably have that in many different cities that you represent as well. So they're working together with the Swedish Radio Orchestra. And we have about 1,000 students there at the moment. We also had a few funding rounds when the immigration increased in 2015. One of the good things was there was a big engagement in this area, a big knowledge, but the relationships with the immigrants and these associations were very weak. The engagement was high, but the structures were low. So, but we had actually about 500,000 euros for that system for a full year, and we could actually handle that within a few months' time to get it out, and I think that was very good. It was a proof that even very heavy structures can work very fast when something happens. So when it comes to applications, we get about 1,100 and 1,200 applications every year that we fund to the level of about 40% of them. And the audience aspects are stronger at the last years. It doesn't matter really if you want to reach a small group or a big group, but you have to be very conscious about it. You have to have a conscious marketing plan. That sounds very business-like, but it's more about what channels are you supposed to use? How are you going to work with your networks? If you're going to do the Persian New Year's Eve, will you have posters in only Farsi or Farsi and Swedish, which is quite different audience groups, right? So very basic things we would like to see in the applications. It doesn't have to be very beautiful Swedish, but it has to be very practical. So that we can see, okay, we spend 100,000 Swedish crowns or euros here. Will that actually reach that group to that amount, or that they intended, the named group? So languages are important. Children, a lot of groups want to work with children, but not everyone has networks. A lot of, many times, they miss the links to the schools that are so heavy loaded with different assignments when it comes to the competence of the kids, right? So culture has basically a wall to force if they want to come into the schools and do arts with the children. So it's a very good idea, but you have to have the structures, otherwise you won't get through there. Corporations, of course, is the basic idea when you want to reach people you don't really know. So that is one of the things that we look very heavy on, and we try to follow up on that. Do you have, when you say that you have a certain corporation, is that actually valid, or is it just an idea? One of the things that is quite new when we discuss audience development in Sweden is the whole concept of culture segments, which basically moves away from target group thinking towards motivation thinking. You heard about it, I do not hear everyone, and I know some you were from the UK, right? Yeah, in UK I know that they used it on the what's the name of the museum? Yeah, British Museum, among others, and I think the numbers went up about 100% and sales and everything went up. But the whole concept is based on not about who you are, more about what you want today. Are you coming here for the great food when you go to the Modern Museum, or are you coming here for having a great family reunion, or are you coming here for the art? Or are you actually very focused on the history thing on certain part of the museum? So, and you come to the museum as the same person every time, but with different motivations. We haven't developed that very far yet, but I think that is something that will come on strongly when it comes to both institutions and the free arts. So I will start looking for that whole idea that when our art institutions look beyond age, gender, ethnicity, etc., which is a shift of mindset and a shift of structures. So I think that is something that we will look into. Because in a city like this, it's a strong competition about time. And we all know that marketing is so expensive, especially for the free arts. So you have to be very focused on what you're going to have to do and if you can afford it. So therefore the whole competition is something that we don't talk about so much, and we don't talk about that you don't reach them through the media anymore. When I worked here in 2004, you could get one page in daily, the biggest newspaper in Sweden, and the stage would be full for a few nights. And the money was running in, and the artist was happy, everybody was happy. Today, you get, if you're lucky, you get a short note 2 days before or 2 days after the show was, right? And then suddenly you cannot use that tool which was free before. So the whole field is shifting for us here, and that hits more heavy on the free arts than it does for the institutions. So basically, it's not a whole lot of new things, but we have to work on the things that we know. You have to have a clear idea, you have to build the competence, have the structures. So it's the same as we did 10 years ago, but we have to work harder on it now. I stop there, and you have a few questions.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, I do have. Thanks. I'm just going to take a few more minutes with Patrick on this because I want to ask him just a couple of things that I hope will be interesting for you. In a moment, then we'll go over into the study. This is the closest you get to speeches today. And I just want to say, while Patrick's still standing here, that later in the sessions before, we will sit around the table, the five of us, and talk to each other. And we will also have some empty chairs. And any of you that want to join the conversation from outside, we're close enough to each other. This is the format that we'll be working, informally around the table. So really in the meaning around the table. But at this moment, because we've had the opportunity both to hear Magnus and Patrick, I just have a couple of things. This idea about audience focus, audience-centric activity as being a criteria for funding. Is this, because I know in the EU application, for example, most of us have worked with Creative Europe applications, it's very clear. There's a whole section. You have to say what you're doing. And it doesn't work anymore to say we're going to open a Facebook page and a website, Thanks a lot, Everybody's got a website and a Facebook. So how far have you come in terms of actually placing it into a criteria or making it something not just that they voluntarily would offer about what they're doing, but that actually is, if you can't tell us this, we can't fund you. How far are you willing to go?
We have 5 criteria, and the first one is, of course, artistic quality, which is the most important one. The second one is the audience consciousness and plans. So that is one of the most strongest ones.
Okay. This is very important, and I wonder how many of you, could I ask all of you who are working in different local situations, in your local situation, not national, not European, but local situation, how many of your cities or towns have the requirements or a serious criteria of audience perspective? I'm one because I live in Stockholm. Okay. So here is a major work to be done at the local level. This is a major work to be done, and Patrick is talking about it now, but I see how slowly it's been developed. Already he was talking about Södra-Teatern, which was one of its focuses. It still hasn't become. The marketing departments sometimes have grown. The marketing budgets have sometimes grown, which means we have 7 people on the telephone instead of 5. But that doesn't mean we have anyone out in the community. Secondly, my other question to you, public financing for the arts. You are dependent, we are dependent, all of us, on public financing for the arts. We believe that it is a public responsibility, just as roads or transport or schools or other things. Is this threatened in Stockholm? Do you feel that there is a wind that's blowing which is questioning the right and the role of taxpayers' money to go to culture? What is your sense of that?
The opposite. We get a stronger and stronger position every year, and that is based basically on that we can show, when we renew the system, we can show that we want something else which is more contemporary and for the future. So the change in the system that has to some extent create anxiety sometimes within the arts is a crucial factor for getting new money. And that's the one thing. The social aspect that I talked about is very important. That is coming on stronger. That we have to show that we are interested and knowledge about the social aspects where culture can play a role. So, and of course, politicians are very often interested in new things that they can show that we did this, which is a conflict between what there is and what new to become. So therefore, we have a big challenge in trying to finance both of them. Very often, our job is about interpret what culture is and which the audience is and how we work and what effect it has. Because we think that everybody knows about culture because everybody has been to a museum. But we have to interpret that in a much better way. Pictures and films and stories and whatever. We have to remind them of what happened in their life when they were 7 years old and went to school and went to that lousy theater, but that wasn't where something started, right? And the libraries. So if we don't are good at that, there are so many questions at the top of the food policy level, then compete with each other. So that is the civil servant's most important job to interpret.
I think that what becomes clear to me throughout Europe as we move around is that many cities are facing the same thing, and many of them tell the same thing, that there is a rising consciousness that culture is a necessary pillar of development, as it's sometimes said. However, the only way that we're going to really push the lines forward is when the audience becomes our ambassadors, the cultural ambassadors. When the audience makes demands, politicians are followers. We've never had political leaders for a long time, who actually lead it. They're usually followers. If the audiences start becoming concerned about their cultural offer in their town, whether it's a Folkets Hus, a People's House of Culture, or whether it's an institution or a regional theater or a free group, if the audience is asking for it, the audience will get it. If we're asking for it, we probably won't get it.
I would like to add a thing about this.
Please.
Actually, our politicians are very skilled, and they're out there a lot in the culture fields, especially the ones who work with culture. But we have to engage the other ones because they are negotiating with other politicians in other fields, right? So it's not enough to make the interpretation to the culture politicians. You have to work with everybody in the city hall. So there's you have to ground it in many different connections.
Okay, this is a very good tip, and it's really true. The finance minister isn't really that interested in what the cultural minister is thinking, unless the cultural minister carries with her, as Harvey Milk said, hey, can you imagine it, me and 400,000 people behind me? Maybe you should start talking to us. But we need to have the audience with us. So I see audience perspective as also a part of our cultural political lobbying. That's it. Okay, Patrick, I hope is going to be with us for a little while longer, and I think we'll move on now to the next section. Thanks very much, and it was an excellent introduction. We have now, I think, a quite unique opportunity, and you people are here. This is also why we're live sending it, and we'll be putting it out on the net later. I have been engaged, Intercult has been engaged in a consortium that was led by my colleagues from Fitzcarraldo, of which we have two representatives, Alessandro Bollo and Alessandra Garaboldi, and together with ECOM, an organization in Italy as well, Cristina da Milano. We were commissioned by the European Commission to do a study on audience development tendencies in Europe, taking in at least 17 countries. How many did we do case studies, finally? 17. So we did 31 case studies in 17 different European countries, and we tried to draw conclusions and recommendations. This is today actually more or less been accepted now officially, so you are the first people that get to try it out. And we're going to test it on you. We're going to spend just 40 minutes here or something explaining, and we'll get the other PowerPoint up now, Joar. Explaining what the study has come to in terms of conclusions and recommendations, and also asking you to respond. Now, in this case, we'll just make a presentation here for you, and then in the afternoon, we've broken up into 3 groups which are connected to the study, which you'll understand in just a few moments. So it's a great pleasure to ask Alessandra, and Cristina to come up to the table here with us.
Maybe later.
What?
Hai bisogno di informazione. Very well. There we are.
Yeah, but
It's not the first one. Start from the beginning.
Can I move it from here?
No, I can't move it. You have to.
Okay.
Just say start from the beginning.
The first one.
Yeah, there we are.
Yeah.
Okay. I leave. I guess you are going to.
Yes,
Christina's starting.
So this is a 4-voice presentation. We are like the Fab 4 of the Okay. Yes, exactly. Let me share.
A boys band.
A boys band. Yes, exactly. So, and I'm starting. So as Chris said, we are a consortium of partners. You see our beautiful logos over there, and we actually won this tender, which was launched in 2015 by the Commission.
to produce a study on audience development. The context is quite clear, I guess, for you all. The Commission is very much on this topic of audience development, also because audience development is one of the main issues of the Creative Europe program. I guess we all work with the program, the Creative Europe program, and one of the priorities is exactly audience development. So what they wanted us to do was to provide a sort of, let's say, background, theoretical background of the literature about audience development, and also to provide some very practical tools for practitioners and for the Commission as well, and for policymakers. We can go on. My colleague Alessandra put this hashtag as a second slide. It's not you, no. Okay, no, but because, well, dissemination is very important for the Commission. So whenever we present the study, we kindly ask our participants to tweet like crazy. So please do that, because the dissemination is highly valued. And this is the hashtag to do so, but we can go on with the next one. So the main aims of the study. In very broad terms, the study aimed at providing successful approaches and methods in the area of audience development. As I said, there was a very practical aim behind our job, to provide practitioners and policymakers with some very concrete tools and rules to use audience development strategies and approaches. The second point, as you see, to equip cultural leaders with the means to take a convincing case for becoming more audience-centric. This is a very crucial sentence, actually. We heard the fantastic example of Sodra Theater, that, by the way, is one of our 31 case studies, and you might well understand why after having listened to the presentation. But the point is exactly this. The subtitle of our study is How to Place Audiences at the Center of Cultural Organization. And this is a matter of choosing to do so. So in a way, the whole point of the study is how can we convince cultural leaders to put audiences at the center of their policies, of their activities, how and why they should do that. So this is, let's say, the framework of the study, of the reasons why we decided to do this job and why the Commission actually launched the tender. We can go to the next one. The study itself, and it will be presented to you later on by my colleagues, developed into different tasks. But the idea underpinning the different tasks were mainly this. How does good audience development look like? So we looked for case studies which actually could support our idea of developing a good audience development strategy. How can it be done? How did some organizations achieve to become audience-centric? This shift I was mentioning before, to really put audiences at the center of your own organization. How did some of them do that? What sort of process is behind that? And which conditions can enable this to happen? Because, well, it's something that cannot be improvised. We heard before the example of Sodra Theater. It took some years to get to the point they are now. It takes training. You need staff trained to do that. You need time to set strategies. You need time to get in touch with your audiences. So it's a long time process. And you need some basic conditions in order to be able to reach these goals. The next one, please. Obviously, we didn't do that on our own. I mean, we are the Fab Four, of course, but we needed some experts to work with us, and it was a great pleasure to work with all these people, and some of them are here. And over there, Iker, yes, over there. So it was a quite, a quite big group of people, real experts on the subject, and it was a great pleasure to work with all of them. As you can see, we tried also to cover a broad geographical spectrum because we were asked to analyze at least 17 countries in Europe, so we needed people from different countries to help us in this. The next one, please. As I said, the project was articulated into 3 different tasks, mainly. The first one was the desk research. So we investigated the bibliography, the literature of the last 20 years in Europe, North America, Canada, and Australia to have a picture of how we, let's say, we can understand today the concept of audience development, starting from this idea of access to culture, which gradually shifted to audience development. It was a very interesting job. We also delivered a glossary of terms because we realized that there is a great confusion about terms. What does access mean? What does audience engagement mean? What does audience development mean? So we tried to make some schemes using the glossary. And we analyzed the main trends of these bibliographical references, of this, let's say, theoretical background behind the word audience development. Then we launched a public call for case studies all over Europe. We got more than 87, I think, answers to our call, and we selected 31 of them. We had some criteria to select them, and my colleagues will tell you more about that. So we produced an analytic catalog of these 31 case studies, and from putting together, let's say, combining the background research on the literature and the results of the case studies, we were able to produce guidelines for practitioners and for policymakers. So there's a part of the report which is actually called Tools and Rules. The third task is dissemination. The hashtag was part of it. So of course, I mean, you know that in each European funded activity, this part of the dissemination and communication is very important because obviously the goal is to spread the word all over Europe as much as possible. Okay. Go on. So we started from the definition of audience development given by Creative Europe. There are many definitions. If you are really keen on these things, you will find everything in the report. But of course, we started from the official one of Creative Europe. And the definition is that audience development is a strategic, dynamic, and interactive process. I don't remember it by heart, of making the arts widely accessible. Okay, so, well, that's the idea. And the other very interesting thing is that it aims at engaging individuals and communities in experiencing, enjoying, participating in, and valuing the arts through various means. So this is, let's say, the framework that Creative Europe gave us to deliver our work and our study. The different means, of course, shift from digital tools to co-creation to partnership. There are many ideas that actually you will find coming across in the report, in the study. We can go on from the definition. Basically, if we have to summarize this definition, what emerges is that audience development, it's a strategic approach. It addresses traditional and non-traditional audiences. It uses different strategies and tools. It requires time, as I said before. It's a very time-consuming process, and professional competencies as well. It's not something that can be improvised. It can be a trigger for a real change in the organization. So to say, to really put the audiences at the center of the activities of the organization itself. One more. Now, well, we have to set a methodological methodological framework to start our job, actually, to start analyzing the bibliography and to start analyzing and setting the criteria for the case study. What did we do? Well, well, I'll tell you what we did. Do not try to read it. The blue, I think we should change the blue one.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, the idea of audience development can be understood as moving in three different directions. One direction is increasing audiences. So in purely, let's say, for quantitative terms, widening audience in terms of numbers, increasing audiences. Then there is another phenomenon which is the deepening your audiences, which means working with your traditional audiences, but instead of going horizontal, so trying to widen or increase the number, you go vertical. You try to deepen the relationship with the audience. So it's a bidimensional phenomenon in this case. And the third way is diversifying audiences. So these are the three directions that we actually followed to analyze the bibliography and the case study. Increasing, deepening, and diversifying audiences. I guess this is my last one. Do not get scared. Just consider that analyzing the bibliography, we found some interesting references on how to divide the audiences. This is the Creative Europe idea of audiences. Then this lady Kawashima, who's a very important person in terms of books about audience development, let's say, and this is our working group proposal. Actually, it was Chris' imagination who invented the audience by habit, audience by choice, audience by surprise. We will talk again this afternoon about that. What does it mean? I will tell you very, very quickly now, and then we come back to it. It's not just a segmentation of audiences. Of course, it can be used as a segmentation of audiences. Those who come traditionally, those who might decide to come or to go somewhere and not somewhere else, and those who normally do not visit the audience by surprise. But as Patrick said before, we actually consider it as a means to understand audiences, not considering what they do with cultural content, but why they choose to consume certain culture or certain cultural features and not others. So it's about motivations. It's about creating a relationship with them, so trying to understand them in order to really relate with them. And it's about understanding that each of us can belong to audience by habit when considering museums, for example, or be audience by choice in relationship with theater, or audience by surprise in relationship to, visual art festival, for example. So each individual can actually shift from these three main groups. And we will talk again about it in the afternoon. I leave the floor to Alessandro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to add one thing before I give, that when we went into the case studies, one of the key things that we decided to look at, but which we had some difficulties with, and it would be interesting to talk with you later, so I plant a seed of critical thinking, and that is the idea of constructive failures. It's not just good practice or best practice that we are looking for, but also attempts made by people that didn't go where they wanted it to go, but we learn an awful lot from that, and I'll come back to that later.
Yeah.
Alessandro.
Thank you, Chris. Can you just go on? Because in this part, my idea is just to present very in a short way some of the main evidences and findings that stems from the case analysis. And if you can show, I will just show you which are the cases that we have at the end studied. As Christina said, we study from more than 80 cases, and we select 31 stories all around Europe. And you can see they are very well spread all over Europe, from the north, from the east, from Spain to Finland, and all these stories, as Chris said, for us have been very important in learning something. There's a sort of fil rouge that links part of the story, every case has its own element of specificity, but there are probably some 4 or 5 big aspects that require a bigger sharing and discussion today and this afternoon. If you can go on. This is the map, not just by the names of the cases, but by type. So you can see that there are different kind of cultural institution that we have considered, from cultural center, from theater, from festival, from museums, cinema institution, circus activities and circus cultural center, specific projects like corner. So there's a very big variety of examples, because of course audience development challenges, audience development issues are very context dependent, and so it's also it was also for us important to see how in the different sector, in different kind of institution, these challenges are interpreted, which is the state of the art. Please go on. Now you can just keep, because I want to talk later. You can just go on. When we at the beginning of the study discuss was the idea to identify some key strategic factor, and we identified 4 factors that we thought that were strategic relevant for implementing audience development strategies and for reaching all the new audiences. What we learned through this case study analysis was that other aspects were also important and relevant for implementing audience development strategies and to work with people, to work with the community. So we moved from a 4-factor model to a much more broader analysis. And this is a very, it looks like a sort of optical art example, and is a sort of diagram that shows in the 3 kind of audiences that we have studied: audience by habit, the green; audience by choice in the middle; and audience by surprise in the external circle, and how the different cases tackle different audiences. And for us, it's important in this image to see that now many organizations are working with different kind of audience, because as we said, the idea of audience development is to embrace a broad approach where widening is important, but also diversification is another issue. And that's why the majority of the cases that we have studied, of course, they work with audience by habit, but they are trying to do new things in order to engage audience by choice and audience by surprise. And this afternoon we will discuss in a much more detailed way about how to work and to engage about this kind of audiences. Go. The first key factor is about place. I don't know, probably that's the title, but the place. Place is really important, of course, as a strategic aspect in order to develop different audience strategies. For place, we intend the physical space, we intend the venue, a place like this, but we intend also the overall ambience where the experience takes place. In some of the cases, in this map, you don't see all the cases we have analyzed. Of course, place it matters for all the cases, but we have also only underlined the cases that are in some cases paradigmatic, or that have they have tackled this issue in an unusual, innovative way. But for all the cases, they stress the importance of creating a place in a physical, but also in a metaphorical sense. And creating a place means working in improving the physical building, creating a welcoming, opening environment for different kind of audiences. In particular, if you work with your audience by habit, but also if you want to work with audience by surprise or audience by choice, place could be also the possibility to go outside the walls. And as Patrick said before, nomadic touring experience, outreach,
still remain a valid strategy for these cases, because many of the stories that we heard are about our attempt to go outside the walls, to work in unconventional, in unusual settings, to use space to renovate old liturgies and create positive and new environments where to engage people who can feel not at ease in traditional places. So, like of course in the case of corners, plays remain one of the main issue of the idea of engaged audiences. So we had a very interesting story about plays and working the place or going outside the walls. You can go on, please. The second is about programming. This was a sort of an aspect that we haven't considered. It means that many of the cultural organizations that we have analyzed have decided to renovate, to refresh, to remodulate, to hybridize, to diversify their offering model. In particular, to address this new programming in order to attract new audiences. Audience by surprise, audience by choice. This is again important, as Christina said before. Audience development is not just marketing, it's not just communication, it's much more an holistic process, and in which also the programming side, the idea of creating, working on languages, working on formats, working on the possibility to hybridize, again, vision, poetics, languages, and programming can be a tool, a choice to engage in a different way people. And we saw many stories about innovation in programming, and I think that this afternoon we can discuss also about this issue in the three different sessions, because programming is of course the very core of this.
I would say that the word, just to one really key word in this programming idea is relevance. What we are looking is not with that attitude that what we provide, people will find it because we are so good, but to try to find out what is actually going on in people's minds, what issues, what concerns they have, and find programming which touches on that. Relevance in programming is a key to new audiences.
Okay, thank you. Can go. Next one is co-creation. Co-creation, of course, was a very important issue for us to understand better, because you know that active engagement, participatory approaches, crowdsourced approaches are a sort of mantra of the new project management in culture, and activated audiences is one of the keywords that stems from all the cases that we have studied. All the organizations that we have studied in different forms and in different degrees of intensity refer to the need to involve the audiences in a more interactive, purposeful, and meaningful way. And many of the cases that we studied are experimenting crowdsourced and cooperative approaches in order to create stronger relations with actual audiences. But one of the ideas, for example, one of the hypotheses that we had at the beginning of the study was co-creative approaches are also useful for engaging new audiences, or they work mainly with the audience by habit. Are these approaches also able to create a diversification of the audience? So this is an issue that probably will require more attention. But what we see, for example, that in some cases the idea of co-created means also the idea of modify the institutional, the organizational structure of the organization in order to embed people voice, community voice in the way that the organization behave. Is the example, for example, of MAS, the Museum of Antwerp, or the example of York in UK with the Takeover Festival, or the example of Kilovac, San Sepolcro in Italy, and they have embedded a board of young people that in a stable way produce idea stimulate and challenge the organization, in modify the programming, in also in the case of York, producing completely the young guys a festival with a budget, with a responsibility. So again, is a matter of trust, is a matter of responsibility, is a matter of doing things together, is a matter of co-create the sense, not just co-create communication. Co-creation of the sense, of course, is a challenge, because it challenges the idea of quality, the control of quality, and there's a sort of, I would say, probably much more perceived than substantial, but trade-off from process and product quality and relevance that emerge in some cases when you open to the people the idea of doing things together. But this is, of course, one of the probably biggest and most interesting and challenging perspectives. So co-creation still remain a very important aspect of what we have understood. If you can go the next one, please. Building capacity, very quick, because we will discuss these issues later. I would say 90%, 100% of the cases on the organization recognize the importance of empowering the staff, but only few of those organizations have undertaken a formal, structured path for empowering for training human resources. Probably there are some reasons. One of the reasons could be that the university and vocational training in the area of audience development is still lacking. There are few experiences, few places where this issue is trained. But we have also seen that European funded project could be a good opportunity for exchange experiences, for exchange good practices. It's the case, of course, of Corners. We are here to learn and to see others' experiences. It's the case of Adeste, that was again another European funding project, and two of the cases had the possibility through Adeste to implement their audience development strategies. It's the case of Spectative or other European projects. So again, European funding project can be an opportunity to surrogate the difficulty to have a formal training on this issue. Next one, please. Next one is about organizational change. This is, of course, a very big, a very complex issue. Tomorrow morning with Dan and with Alessandra, we'll do a specific session on this topic, so I don't want to spend so many words now. The idea behind this concept is that if you want to move towards a more audience-centric approach, we have to work on different dimensions. As I said before, it's not just a matter of digital communication and marketing. We have to work on the work structure, on the work organization. Some of the cases that we study have started to conceive audience development as a long-term and organizational-wide commitment, and in some cases we saw the creation of ad hoc department, horizontal function, interaction between the functions. But in general, many of the organizations that we have studied refer to the need to create stronger collaboration, much more and stronger coordination between the different functions, in particular between the artistic direction, the programming, the education, the marketing, the digital. This is a very crucial point. How to create much more fluidity, how to create much more flexibility, how to create organizational environment can be porous, let me use this word, to the external and to the internal inputs in order to create and conceive audience development as an holistic approach. Because in many cases, if you want to work effectively on a project, the different functions have to work together at the beginning, during the concept, not at the end. Otherwise, it's just adding things without working together. And in many cases, this was a real problem. So we will discuss this morning. The last one is about use of data, and then I will pass probably use of data and digital, but very shortly. Use of data, of course, data are a sort of precondition for implementing audience development strategies. I would say again, 90% of the cases say, oh, data are really important, we need data, data are the basis, but many of them refer also the difficult to implement a structured data system for measuring in a quantitative and qualitative way the audience, to evaluate, to assess the impact. So the theater, for example, has a very sophisticated ticket system and data knowledge system for predict, for define the programming, for target in a very effective way. But as Patrick said earlier, now also funding criteria are about audience knowledge, audience sensitivity, the idea of produce impact, and you need data. You need data to understand, but also you need data to prove. And so, again, data can be another topic that can be reinforced also through the use of agencies, resource centers that can provide to the different organization frame of knowledge on those aspects. Digital, and I finish and give the floor to Alessandra, was the last point. And digital, again, was of course, is a big issue. At the beginning, we felt that digital can be the very point for implementing digital strategies, because digital have to be conceived in a very broad sense. It's not just communication, it's not just digital advertising, but is of course important in the area of audience analysis, tracking behaviors, is important in the domain of augmented video virtual experiences. The digitization of content also make this content available to large and widespread audiences, but and this seems a very promising path for cultural organization, but only until now only big institutions are able to do this, to undertake such extensive investment. Think about digitization of cultural content. So many of the organizations that we study are small and medium organizations, and in a small and medium organization, digital is interpreted mainly as a communicational tool or for creating relationships. So there are potentiality that have to be exploited, and probably there's an issue of competencies, internal competencies. There's an issue of budget and money. So digital, of course, still remain an opportunity that have to be developed. So I will give the floor to Alessandra for presenting the.
Hi,
yeah.
I'm Lewis. The third one. Please, can you
the
go?
platform. Speak. Okay.
Okay. We are almost there. So let's say what my colleagues just told you so far is about what we found out in our research, focusing on medium and small-sized organizations, because this was the idea. I mean, the idea that those might be, first of all, it's the most, it's the biggest part of cultural organizations in Europe. So finding good examples and best practices in big institutions would have been less useful for the rest of the sector, let's say. And but what we found out is also that just let's say at the boundaries of our scope, we found out also, because many of our experts came from there, and we also went through during the open call others, that there are a certain and growing number of, let's call them agencies and resource centers, that are actually active regionally or locally or nationally around this development topic. And what we found out is that, and we wanted to mention it, although it was outside the research perimeter, let's call it this way, because this is where real, let's say, knowledge is somehow sedimenting, creating something new. Because the same idea that audience development is let's say, a societal challenge. It's not just about, and it's not the aim. I mean, audience development is the means, of course. Because we want to achieve better participation, stronger participation, and new role for the art. a different kind of engagement. So it's it's not about audience development, it's about arts development, of course. So what we know is that this was our starting point. And this idea that some is a challenge that can't be tackled individually by single organizations, not just because they don't have competences enough or money enough, but also because they are part of an environment, and this is a challenge that we can't tackle alone. So those resources and agencies have a huge role, and they can have a very important role because they are practicing, they are providing data, quality data, they are providing insights, they are also, let's say, somehow raising the bar of the audience awareness and practices, and they are also acting also at the political level. So they are at the forefront of this. So they are somehow in the middle of practice and policy. And in this sense, one of our recommendations in the policy that later on Chris will talk to you about, it's also about empowering somehow these kind of agencies. We have NPU here, we have Audience Agency, we have many others, and also in Sweden. So we have many kind of, and this happened in countries where the national policies recognize the importance of audience development as a developmental issue in a way. So there we can have them. In other places, in other countries are more maybe private ones, or in the middle, or mixed public and private ones, not fully sustained by the government.
I can just say that Antor Gianni here from Audience Agency is one of such. So Impact Foundation, which is sitting over here, is another one in Poland. Republik, we have 3 colleagues here from Västergötland, West Sweden, which is working in this way. That is the idea of bringing together knowledge and then redistributing it. We found very few examples of this in Southern Europe.
Unfortunately. And the second thing is the role, of course, of transnational projects that Sandro was mentioning. It's about course and so on. So this will be said also later on, and I mean you are here, the living proof of that, living evidence. Please, the column. Okay, so just the next one. This is just a short, let's say, what they asked us was to support both organizations and policymakers. So making sense of what we found out in a way. Of course, there are already available on the market and freely downloadable tools for group audience development, let's say. So we have, you can find toolkits, you can find whatever, usually toolkits. So let's do it, make it simpler in a few steps. So what we did want to write here was not about how to do a good audience development plan or how to do a good audience development strategy or whatever, but much more about coming back to the first meaning of our research, which was about shifting towards an audience-centric approach. These are more, let's say, 5 questions that we think you should somehow, all organizations, cultural organizations, as operators, big and little, doesn't matter, should ask themselves and, let's say, tackle before thinking to somehow shift towards an audience-centric approach, which is not about being keen to have a lot of people to our venues, because of course we always wanted that, but to be conscious and aware about what this does mean when it comes to making it happen. What happens to you when you ask for people to come to your venue? So how do you have to change, and to what extent you want to change? Because audience development, once again, is not the same for everybody. And this doesn't mean, this isn't just because you are all in different countries, but also because you are all different individuals and institutions and organizations with values, missions, identities, and whatever. So for each one of you, and being audience-centric means something different, will mean something different. So it's not about giving good examples, but giving, just like raising and fostering tools to ask yourself. So the 5 is not steps, because this is not linear neither. I mean, it's just 5, let's say, points. It's, of course, who we are and who do we want to meet, means that we must be very clear about who we want to be for, which is not everybody. Okay, so being clear that probably it will be everybody participating in our activities, and balancing priorities, because if you want people to get in, you should probably have consequences that you must be ready to face. And it's not about marketing, it's not about education, it's not about programming, it's about all of these things. So if educators usually go for audience by surprise, or marketing goes more for audience by choice, and sometimes by habit, but in a way, this is something that you come to without the full participation of all the rest of the organization. Because the program, if your artistic director doesn't agree, you won't achieve anything. Okay? At the end, you will do wonderful projects that will end there between us. Focusing, listening, and understanding, because if you want to reach everybody, it's a goodwill, but you have to start from someone. So being focused, as I was really impressed by the speech of Patrick before, because it was really the policymaker we would want to have in our cities throughout Europe. Then understand if you are able to do that, so being very conscious also about competences, resources, because it's a very, very long process. So it's something you can't achieve, so being realistic in what you are doing, and also understanding when you need someone else, because we don't have all competences inside, we can't. And at the end, it's about figuring consequences always before starting something. So these are steps. There are also in the report you will find also some examples of how some of the organizations that we studied did that. So how did they somehow went through all these steps, not in a linear way, of course, because life is complicated. It's never a step by step thing. Okay, so it's about it's much more about having a discussion, an open and progressive discussion, internal discussion about what's happening. So that's why we recommend to use this as a, let's say, as a discussion tool, internal discussion tool. Nothing that can be done alone. Once again, both the whole organization or nothing. So I leave the floor to Chris.
I will be very short, because these are exactly the kinds of things that I want us to talk about this afternoon. When after lunch, when we go through our sessions. So, please two forward. One more. Thank you. You can't read those either. And I just want to underline that we will be within a week or so after we are finished here. We'll send you this PowerPoint and also the link to the study with all of its different. There's an executive summary. There's a part 1 guide, part 2 guide. There's the whole study, and there's 31 case studies, and you can go through it at your own once it's been okayed by the EU. But we have to first get it out to you, so you don't have to take very, very clear notes on this. Let me just tell you very quickly then where we are going with this, because we came. I don't know if you've ever heard of the term, but the term in war terms is the rules of engagement. The rules that the policeman has when he takes a criminal, the rules that an army has when they take a city. It's called rules of engagement. Well, we call this tools and rules of engagement, but we're talking about audience engagement. The reason I point that out is because these recommendations in the so-called rules, these are recommendations to different levels. It's to the Commission, and we also make some recommendations about how to incorporate it into Creative Europe, but there are also recommendations to us and to artists. So, I would just name them. I will read them out loud. I wish we had printed copies of this here with us, but we won't have it by the afternoon. But I'll say it out loud here now. Number 1, our first recommendation: raise awareness about audience development as a concept and a strategy among the different cultural stakeholders. That is, bring it to the light. As you said about Patrick or Magnus here in Sweden, I can tell you that I'm working in Romania now, in Timișoara, and this is not, they use the buzzword, but they're talking about marketing. They're not talking about a concept or a strategy of engagement. Number 2, implement an evidence-based approach for measuring advancements in the area of audience development. Evidence approach. Qualitative and quantitative evidence. This is a big problem because everybody can tell you exactly how many seats percentually they were sold, for each performance, but they can't tell you anything about the people, their motivation, why they're there, what they feel when they go home, if they change their attitude to their community, and over a long period of time, 2 years of working in a community, after 2 years, something happens to people. But you can't measure that with normal mathematical or statistical evidence. So, evidence-based, but evidence both in quality of life and in quantity of visits. Number 3, reinforce links with the educational sector, promoting integration between the cultural sector and the educational system. This is obvious for many of us, but we can see that today, in the last 10 years, I followed, I think Christina will, and Fitzcarraldo and many of you will be able to confirm, that museums are opening educational programs. I have a museum, I met a museum, I spoke just a few months ago in Leuven in Belgium. The entire museum went from being an exhibition to being a workshop. They still have the same collection on the walls, they're changing it all the time, but who changes it? The kids. The kids go through a digital thing and they choose out what they want to see hanging on the wall the next time they come back. Now, it's still contemporary art of the highest class. It's just that it's being used instead of just being consumed. So, reinforce the links with the educational sector. Number 4, build capacity for audience development and engagement strategies at cultural institutions and among arts professionals. Training, practice. This is what Alessandro was talking about. Capacity building. You can't have a staff that doesn't know what they're doing. You can't have a staff who thinks their job is to sell tickets. If that's what's happening, it's not publicly financed. They should work in the private cultural sector because it's about selling numbers of tickets. But if we really think that publicly financed culture has a function in the development of our society, then we have to build the capacity of our staff to understand that it is the audience which is our purpose. They have given us our mission. Sounds very simple, but please go back to your organizations and find out how many of the people are understanding their role in an integrated process of audience development. Number 5, promote innovative models of active participation in the arts. This is co-creation. This is when you've got people engaged in something and then they watch something and then they participate again and then they go see a movie afterwards. You've got a series of events, what we call the audience chain of experience. The chain doesn't just happen when you're sitting in the theater. It's the way there, the way home, and everything that happens around it. Number 6, enable conditions for long-lasting processes, including investments in dedicated staff positions to focus on innovative approaches to audience engagement. Dedicated staff. Even the Stockholm City Theatre has a marketing department, but I don't know how many, and it's a big institution with 250 employees or whatever, how many are dedicated to making human contact. Me and Matt, come. Are you coming to our show? Please. I'd like to take you. I take you by the hand. I buy you the ticket. I'll even get a babysitter for your kid. What is the relationship that we need to have? This is not done on a telephone or on the internet. It can be also complemented. Number 7, establish clear and realistic guidelines for artists and artistic directors at cultural institutions supported by public funding to adapt their programs and objectives to a more audience-centric perspective. This is what I asked Patrick before. I don't know if he's still here. What I asked Patrick before was, are you going to make this a criteria? Do you dare to say to every cultural institution that our taxes pay for that your job is to reach audience? I have a couple of newspaper articles here. There's been a discussion between the director of the theater, the city theater, and the politicians who give the money. And the discussion is very much about who decides the repertoire, who decides what the goals are. Do they decide that the goal is lots of people? Okay, give them West Side Story year after year, Cabaret, one after another. Or is the goal engagement, relations, continuously? These goals have to be discussed and they have to be put forward to the artists, because in fact in Corners, and I look at my Corners colleagues here now, how many times we've talked to our artists and we said, your role, engage, participation. And they look at us like, well, what's that? Well, how do I mean? Of course, they're feeling they want it. That's why they're working with us on the project. But the possibilities of actually doing it are very complicated. Number 8, the last one. Prioritize cultural venues and initiatives that mix audiences, bringing diverse ethnic, age, and social groups together for common experience. This I'm going to throw out to Colin Ottomson later on when we're speaking, because this idea of the intercultural meeting place, the place or the intergenerational meeting place, that is, prioritize those places which are not niche, what do you say, not segmented, in the sense that a jazz club plays for people that always go to jazz. Well, that's audience by habit, and we can break up the world. We have a concert hall for classical music, a concert hall for jazz, a place for rock, a place for kids, a place for old people, and we all talk to each other in our own little groups and we never meet. Obviously, an audience perspective means intercultural transformation, and so we believe that our political leaders should prioritize places where people meet across and outside of their comfort zones and their rules. This is a really quick sketch of a very, very deep study that we've done together with our friends. I won't say it's, we've come to massively transformative conclusions. Many of the things we came up with, we picked up and heard from other people. We are not reinventing the wheel. But it's now gathered in one place at the EU for them to be able to use it, but we want also you people to use it, so we will get the link out to you. But in the afternoon, we will focus on these 3 subjects. Before we do that, however, we're late, I'm sorry, as well to our guests. We were supposed to take a coffee break about 20 minutes ago. We'll take a coffee break now. Could we just do it shortly? There's not a lot of space around here for us to mingle, I'm sorry. So you'll have to stay here. Normally the balcony would be the perfect place. We take a coffee break and then we come back. Look, excuse me just a moment. We'll come back and I've asked Katerina to make